Welcome to the Deep Dive. We explore the systems shaping our world and try to break them down into something useful, something actionable. Today we're tackling a real puzzle in the business world, the Toyota Production System, or TPS. Now, TPS is, globally recognized. Its success, undeniable. Toyota, obviously, but also companies like Danaher have used these principles incredibly effectively. And yet, here's the paradox. You look at the U.S., maybe 240,000 companies with 50-plus employees, and remarkably few seem to have truly nailed a successful, long-lasting TPS implementation. It works, we know it works, but most companies can't seem to make it stick. Why?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? That gap between knowing it's great and actually making it work, that's what we're digging into today. And the overwhelming message from, well, all the research is that most lean attempts fail because of a fundamental misunderstanding. People treat TPS like it's just a box of tools for manufacturing, Kanban cards, 5S checklists, things like that. But the reality, it's a complete operating system. It's economic, it's social, it's much bigger than just tools.
Right. And the world really started paying attention, I guess, back in 1990 with that big MIT study, The Machine That Changed the World. It really put it on the map for Western businesses and coined that phrase we all know, lean manufacturing.
Yeah, lean, which honestly turned out to be a bit of a double-edged sword. It's interesting, one of the main authors later said he kind of regretted using lean manufacturing.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because it immediately made people think, oh, this is only for factories. It pigeonholed the whole philosophy,
So it instantly created this assumption. If you're not physically building something, maybe this isn't for you.
Exactly. But if you look at it differently, like through the lens of other key writings on the topic, you see it's way more than techniques. It's a deep philosophy. TPS is fundamentally about building a culture of continuous improvement. And that applies everywhere. Software, healthcare, finance, you name it.
Okay. So let's unpack that. If it's not just a toolbox, what is the TPS model? How should we think about its structure?
Well, one really clear way to frame it, drawing from Olivier Leroux's work, is to see TPS as having three core interlocking elements. You've got the philosophy, the technical methods, and the managerial practices. And the key is they're inseparable. They have to be integrated. They have to support each other. You can't just grab a tool.
Without the management practices to back it up.
Exactly. Or without the underlying philosophy, the why behind it all.
And you mentioned philosophy, technical, managerial. But the sources really stress something sits at the heart of all three, right?
Human development. That's the absolute core. The philosophy layer basically answers why are we even here as an organization? And a key principle there is developing your people. The technical methods, sure, they're about solving problems, but they only really work if your managers create an environment where everyone feels empowered to spot and solve those problems. Not just the bosses.
Right? Not just top-down directives.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where I think it gets really critical for anyone listening who's, making strategic decisions. Leroux argues TPS needs to be seen primarily as an economic system. It tackles three huge challenges that traditional mass production systems struggle with. Let's take the first one.
Okay. Challenge number one, aligning profit with cash flow. This is a constant headache in traditional setups. Think about mass production. It pushes you to make huge batches, often way before customers actually want the stuff. Why?
To get the unit cost down. Economies of scale.
Exactly. Classic argument. But what happens? Your income statement might show a nice profit, right? But where's the actual cash? It's tied up. It's sitting in raw materials, work in progress, finished goods piled up in a warehouse somewhere.
So the profit's on paper, but the bank account feels squeezed. Cash is frozen.
Yeah.
Or you're borrowing to fund that inventory.
Precisely. Profit and cash flow are totally out of sync.
Okay, so TPS, with its focus on just-in-time, making only what's needed, when it's needed, avoids that huge inventory burden, keeps cash moving.
Right, prioritizes flow over batching. It connects production directly to demand.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here. Doesn't that make a company incredibly fragile? Just in time sounds great until there's a, global pandemic or a ship gets stuck in a canal.
Yeah.
What about supply chain shocks?
That's a really important question and a common concern. But the answer isn't zero inventory. It's about building resilience differently. TPS isn't fundamentally about low inventory. It's about building a super responsive problem-solving muscle throughout the organization. Think about it. A traditional company hit by a shock relies on its inventory buffer. When that buffer runs out, they stop. dead in the water.
Okay.
A TPS-driven company sees that same shock as a major problem to be solved now. The culture, the management systems, they're all geared towards rapid adaptation. Find a new source, redesign a process, reallocate resources. They don't just wait for the buffer to deplete, they actively solve the disruption. It's a dynamic defense, not a static one.
That makes sense. It's about agility, not just stockpile size.
Exactly. Which leads us perfectly into the second big challenge TPS tackles.
Which is?
Challenge 2. Human relations and the dignity of work. This is the social side. In traditional companies, who solves problems? Usually managers, right? Orders flow down.
And frontline workers.
Yeah.
They just execute. Follow the instructions.
Pretty much. Use your hands, maybe, but not necessarily your brain. That's the implicit message sometimes.
Which can be, frankly, quite dehumanizing and probably inefficient.
Hugely inefficient. TPS flips that script completely. It aims to create an environment, a safe environment, where every single employee is expected to be a problem solver. Think of them as scientists conducting experiments right there on the line, using their knowledge, their creativity, because they're closest to the work.
And that taps into something fundamental, doesn't it? The need for autonomy, for control over your own work. That's motivating.
Incredibly motivating. And this brings us to that famous quote from IG Toyota. It sums it all up.
Ah, yes. Before cars, make people.
Before cars, make people. I mean, think about that. Coming from the head of a car company.
It implies their primary output isn't just vehicles. It's skilled, capable, engaged human beings.
Yes. TPS is basically a human development system cleverly disguised as an operations strategy. And how do you develop people? By letting them tackle problems. The system is deliberately designed to make problems visible immediately while they're still small.
Like the campfire analogy.
Exactly. It's much easier to put out a small campfire than a raging forest fire. TPS wants you to see the smoke, the tiny flame, right away.
Okay, but if I'm the worker who spots that campfire,
Yeah.
isn't there a risk? What if it looks like my mistake caused it? Why would I raise my hand?
And that is why the philosophy and the management practices are non-negotiable. You absolutely need psychological safety. People have to feel secure enough to point out problems, to try solutions, even to make small, recoverable mistakes without fearing blame or punishment.
If management shoots the messenger.
Then the whole system collapses. People will hide the campfires until they become forest fires. Safety is paramount for visibility.
Makes sense. And speaking of problems and waste, that connects to the third challenge, right? Environmental stewardship.
Yes. And I really appreciate how the TPS philosophy handles this. It doesn't pit profitability against sustainability.
It's not an either choice.
Absolutely not.
No.
It rejects that whole idea. Think about waste in the TPS sense, wasted materials, wasted energy, wasted water, wasted movement. Eliminating that is environmental stewardship. It inherently reduces your impact and your costs. They aren't competing, they're aligned.
So designing products and processes to be greener, using less energy, creating less waste, maybe even boosting biodiversity, those aren't separate green initiatives. They're core to eliminating waste.
They're fundamental requirements of the system. If you figure out how to make the same product using, say, 30% less energy and 20% less material.
You've hit both a cost goal and an environmental goal simultaneously.
Bingo. They have to be linked for the system to truly work as intended.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly powerful. Solves financial disconnects, engages people, helps the environment. So let's loop back to that original paradox. If it's this good, why do so many companies try lean and just fail? Why the crash and burn?
Well, it goes right back to that first point, the misunderstanding. Most failed implementations treat TPS or lean as an add-on. They try to sprinkle some tools, a Kanban board here, a 5S event there, onto their existing underlying mass production system.
Which is built on entirely different principles: rigidity, big batches, top-down control.
Exactly. And those two systems, those two mindsets, they fundamentally clash. They fight each other. You're trying to put a flexible flow-based roof on a rigid batch-based foundation. It just doesn't work.
What are the typical ways these transformation efforts fall apart? What are the failure modes we see?
Looking at the analyses, two things come up again and again. First, there's often no clear big why. Meaning they can't really articulate the deep purpose for the change beyond maybe we need to cut costs a bit. It's shallow. The second, and maybe even more critical issue, is a lack of genuine, sustained commitment to the long-term philosophical part of the change.
But hang on, isn't that tough? Especially for public companies. They face intense pressure for quick results, quarter by quarter. Isn't the temptation huge to just jump to the tools, the visible stuff, and skip the slow, messy culture change?
Oh, the temptation is immense. Absolutely. And that's often what happens. Leaders confuse activity, launching big initiatives, hiring consultants, lots of PowerPoints with actual progress. They expect major ROI in, what, 6 months?
Yeah.
A year?
Right.
And when those quick, dramatic wins don't materialize, or maybe a key manager who championed it moves on, the commitment just evaporates.
And the whole thing gets labeled a failure, shelved, and they move on to the next management fad.
Precisely. They treat it like a project with a start and end date, not as a fundamental, ongoing transformation of how the business operates.
So the big, splashy, company-wide rollout, that's probably not the way to go.
Generally, no. Avoid those high-stakes, high-profile launches. They often focus too much on internal marketing and branding, and they magnify the risk and resistance.
So what's the alternative?
Start small. Start humble. The pilot approach.
Okay. Pick one area, one process.
Exactly. Minimize the initial risk. Give the team space to learn, to make mistakes, to adapt the principles to their specific context. You solve real problems on a manageable scale. And crucially, you build credibility through actual, undeniable results, even if they're small at first.
Those early wins build momentum.
Yes. And this aligns perfectly with established change management theory, like John Cotter's work. He stressed that successful transformation isn't random. It progresses through distinct stages in sequence.
You can't just leapfrog stages, right? You need to build the foundation first.
Yeah.
Establish urgency, form the right team.
You absolutely cannot skip steps. If you jump straight to implementing technical tools without laying the groundwork, getting that philosophical buy-in, realigning management practices, you're setting yourself up for failure. Or, best case, you make some temporary progress, hit a wall, and have to backtrack anyway. And backtracking, rebuilding trust, that's often way harder and more painful than starting slow and steady. You need the philosophy before the tools make sense.
Okay. So wrapping this up, what's the key takeaway for you, the listener, trying to make sense of TPS for your own situation? It seems TPS offers this incredibly potent framework, but adopting it isn't about learning a few Japanese words or techniques. It demands patience. It demands a real commitment to developing people.
That's the heart of it. The final summary is really this. If you want to successfully adopt TPS principles, you have to shift your fundamental philosophy. Stop seeing it as just a toolkit for cutting costs. You have to embrace it as a complete system, economic and social designed, first and foremost, to develop capable, empowered people. Because it's those people who will then solve your organization's deepest challenges, whether they're financial, social, or environmental.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. Develop the people, and they'll improve the system. So if the true genius of the Toyota production system lies in creating that safe environment, developing people, and tackling problems when they're still small, manageable campfires, here's our final thought for you. What small, safe pilot project could you initiate, maybe even this week, in your own work environment? Something designed specifically to make one hidden problem, one inefficiency, visible, turning an invisible campfire into something the team can actually see and address. Something to think about. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.